future. We can take it there today. Panasonic.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about the Panasonic UB820-4K Blu-ray player. But before we do that, if you guys like tech reviews, movie reviews, and some video game reviews along the way, then consider subscribing because we do all that here on the channel. So I've been spending a lot of time with my new Panasonic UB820-4K Blu-ray player, and I want to say right off the bat that this thing is amazing. What it does to old DVDs and Blu-rays and your 4Ks, it just upscales all the old stuff and makes it look fantastic. It's the best my movies have ever looked. Let's talk HDR, because that was the main reason I ended up picking up a 4K player, because my Xbox Series X that I used to watch the movies on didn't support Dolby Vision for discs. You can stream Dolby Vision all day on the Xbox, but you can't do it on a disc. So we ended up getting a 4K player, and I went with the Panasonic. So this supports HDR, HDR10 Plus, and Dolby Vision. And now the best part about this, which I think is the shining star for this player, is the smart HDR switch. So it'll sense what content is being played, and then it'll put it out in the best HDR format. So if you have a disc with Dolby Vision, it'll put it in Dolby Vision. If it has HDR10, it'll put it into that. And if it's a standard Blu-ray or DVD, it's going to put it in SDR. It will be standard resolution instead of high dynamic, and it won't force it like the Sony 4K players do. And that was the main problem I had with the Sony, was it was just forcing regular Blu-rays into Dolby Vision, which wasn't the end of the world. It still looked okay, and it might have improved some of it, but it just, in the back of my head, knowing that that wasn't the correct format, that's what bothered me and made me go to the Panasonic. So the Panasonic has some basic hookups on the back. You have your HDMI out, and it has a second HDMI port if you have the high-end theater setup where you want to put your HDMI straight to your TV and then your other HDMI straight to your receiver for your sound. So you can do the split up like that, and you can go into the settings and set all that. But I have everything through going into the TV through one HDMI port, and it still looks and sounds fantastic because I have the Sonos ARC, and all my content goes through eARC port and goes to my receiver that way. So I did not do the double, and I don't have a way to test that because I don't have an actual receiver. I have a soundbar. Now, another cool feature this player has, it has a USB port on the back. So I believe you can update your firmware and stuff with that if you were to download it off the internet and plug it into a thumb drive. But what we found was pretty cool was you could take any of your little micro SD cards, your scan discs, and put them in a reader and then plug it into the back of the USB, and you can bring up all your pictures and videos that are on that card into your player, onto your TV, or whatever sort of monitor you have it hooked up to. I've never thought I would find a use for that, but we ended up doing that when we did our trailer reaction video. So before we jump into all the settings and everything that I'm going to show you guys, I just want to tell you that the apps on this are kind of light and bare bone. So don't think this is going to be an all-in-one streaming hub, because it only supports Netflix, Prime Video, and YouTube. You can't download any other apps. There's no Disney Plus on this. There's no HBO. There's no Hulu. Keep that in mind. You might still need an Apple TV or Roku or whatever, or the Nvidia Shield, an Xbox, whatever you guys are streaming on. I don't stream anything on this, so I can't really talk on how it looks, but I would assume it probably looks great with those three apps that are there, so keep that in mind. Another thing you can do with this, which I did not do because I don't have them, is you can use your Google Assistant or an Amazon Alexa, and you can hook it up via the USB port on the back, and you can talk to your Google Assistant or Amazon and tell it to turn it on, turn it off, open the disk tray, small commands like that. So that was pretty cool if you're kind of lazy, but from my research, it is quite the delay, and I find it easier just to use the remote. Now, to hook this up to your network, which you're going to want to do so you can get the latest firmware updates, and if you wanted to connect those streaming platforms, it does have built-in Wi-Fi, or you can plug it into the LAN port on the back. Now, with the proper HDMI cables that will handle the speed, I suggest an HDMI 2.1 with the 48 gigabyte per second speed. I know it's not necessary, but I am one for overkill, and I'd like to have the best of the best, so I use that cable. Again, I know you can use an 18 megabyte per second cable, just a regular HDMI cable, but I went overkill just to know that my cable was good enough. But it will do 4K 60, so you can watch Gemini Man. I know not all players will handle 4K 60. I would say most of the new ones do, but that's just what this handles up to. I wanted to let you guys know about that. So it does have a nice sleek design. I like the way it looks. And the build quality is not the greatest. Everyone complains about the plastic and the fingerprints on it, but I've had mine for about a month. I mean, there's not really any fingerprints on it at all, and it's just sits on the shelf. It's not like you're handling the thing, so I mean, I don't find the build quality to be a negative, for me at least. But when you open it up, the whole face folds down, and you have your disk drive on the left. The only buttons on it are an open and a close and your power, so make sure you do not lose the remote. So I know this doesn't look the best because the OLED does have a pretty glossy screen, and you're going to see all the lights. You can still see and make out what's on the screen. So I just want to show you a quick little interface video. So if you were to have your USB stick plugged in, you would be able to go to your videos and go down and look at your USB videos or off your disk. Same thing with music. You can play music off your USB drive or put in a regular CD. I know that's an ancient thing this day and age. Not too many people have CDs laying around. And kids today probably don't even know what those are. Photos, also, you can go in there if you had photos on a disk or on your USB. Your home network. Now this is if you were to set up a whole home network. Your network service, that's going to be where all your apps are. So you'll have YouTube, Netflix, and Prime Video, and it makes this terrible sound.
Stop it!
There is also a web browser, which I would not suggest using because it's probably god-awful. And last but not least, I will show you some of the settings that I set up on mine. There is some other videos on YouTube with people who know a lot more about these settings than I do. So I would suggest looking at those, or you could follow these as a basic setup. So you can also set a wallpaper. I believe you could get a photo off your USB drive and set your background, which is a pretty cool feature, but I just left mine to black, so if I leave it alone, that's the least amount of strain on my OLED TV. So jumping into player settings. So there's a whole list of stuff on the left. So we are under the HDMI. We are under the HDMI tab. So resolution, I left that on auto, just so if I'm watching a regular Blu-ray, it could go down to 1080p, but it usually will upscale everything into 4K anyway. Then your 4K output, I have it set to 4K 60, 444. I know that has something to do with the chroma upscaling. Again, I'm not too knowledgeable of what that means exactly. If you check out Vincent on HD TV Test, he will pretty much tell you exactly what that means. But I know this is the preferred setting for all the research I've done. And now here's your video and audio, where you could do your dual HDMIs. I have mine to audio only and auto because that is how it should be set with just going to the TV without your dedicated receiver. Dolby Vision I leave on, HDR 10 Plus you want to leave on, and then you want to dive deeper in there and change your color mode to 444. Deep color output, you want your 12-bit priority, and then the HDR, you're going to leave that on auto. Another cool feature with this is your HDR TV type. So I have an OLED, so mine's set to OLED. Set it to all your different LCD styles and a projector, and this is basically just going to control the brightness. So I believe OLED, I guess that's on the top as far as brightness, so that's the brighter one. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but do a little research on your panel before selecting a type. And then a lot of these settings you're going to leave on auto. And the last thing, some people shut off your 7.1 audio reformatting. So basically what that does is anything with a 6.1 channel or less is automatically expanded to play at a 7.1. So it's going to take all your DTS 5.1 tracks and convert them to a PCM 7.1 track. And I've left it on there for the past month and I have no issues, and I prefer it this way. Some may prefer it off to listen to the original track that is on the disc, but I think this works just fine. Again, I have the Sonos soundbar, so this might act a little bit different with a proper receiver and surround sound system. Now jumping into video, there's not too many options here, so I left that on auto. And on your audio, dynamic range compression. So I put that to off. I believe it comes on auto out of the factory, but I turned mine off because I do not want my audio to be compressed. Now your optical down sampling, you want to leave at up to 192. It'll tell you when you select it. I mean, my soundbar supports up to that, so it'll let me select that. I believe if the connected device does not support it, it won't let you select it, but I assume mine does, as it let me select that. But as you can see on the screen, it says if it does not support that, go down to the one below it. So your down mix around is going to change stuff from 2-channel to multi-channel. And I believe that's for stuff that has, these are for older movies that have older soundtracks where everything's going to be mono track. And this will encode it to a multi-channel surround track. And the rest of this stuff down here I didn't really touch. This also supports 3D Blu-rays, which I do not have a 3D TV, so I was unable to test this feature. Under your ABC language, you could change your subtitle language, but you can adjust all your subtitles and closed captions in this category. Then here's your network settings, where you would just connect to your network. If you got kids in the house, you can change the rating system. So level 8 is the highest. I'm not sure what number translates to an R rating or something like that, but I have mine off as I am allowed to watch what I want. But that's great for parents who are not home or trying to limit what their kids watch. And last but not least, under the systems menu, under display settings, you could change your screensaver function, which I would leave on, especially for an OLED TV. Your front panel display is going to be what's on the panel of the player itself. So I leave mine on auto, so during the day it is bright, and at night, or when a movie starts, it dims. So it's not, I mean, it's not very bright at all anyway, but it's just not necessary. And in here is where you would do your update for your firmware, and you can see the rest of your system information or reset the default settings if you need it. I think this has the most settings I've ever seen in a Blu-ray player, and just so much that you can customize and tweak, and it's great. You know, the Sony I had previously didn't have half of these options, and it's just very nice to be able to adjust some of this stuff. Another thing I wanted to add, which I used to have an issue with my old soundbar. If you have any sort of lip sync issue or audio delay, you can change that all right here. So you can go positive or negative. It should be able to line up your lip sync issues if you're having that sort of problem. So last but not least, I wanted to talk about the remote itself. You know, it's not backlit. That's probably the one thing I wish this thing had, because sometimes I find myself at night with my phone light on here trying to find what button I'm trying to press, because I like to go and see the status, and I like to go in and see how much time is left on the movie, and I'll find myself looking like really close at it with the phone light, just trying to see what's on there. So a backlit remote would have been the cherry on top for this player, because other than that, this thing is fantastic. Every movie I've watched on it, I've had a great time with. It looks amazing. And it's a noticeable difference from the Xbox that I was watching Blu-rays on. The HDR changer is, again, that is the crown feature for me. Because the Dolby Vision and the HDR10 Plus, to go back and forth between that. And if your movie has both, you can select which one it is, because there is an HDR setting on here where you can just go and adjust which HDR you want on there. I also noticed that my audio sounds much better with this versus the Xbox. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. So this player retails for $4.99. We got it on sale for $4.25, so 75 bucks off. Not terrible. I know this has gone cheaper sometimes, but this is, I think this is from 2018, 2019, and there hasn't been one since, except for that 9000 series, which is an all-metal construction, the THX certified one, where it's got every sort of hookup you can imagine for audio. From my understanding, this has the same player in it and puts out the same quality as that just has more options if you have a crazy home theater. But I think this is, I would try to find this for the $400 range, somewhere around there. I think it's well worth it for that, especially if you don't have a player at all and you're in the market for one. I absolutely love this. I'm very happy with it, and every time I put a movie in it, I'm just blown away by the upscaling with a Blu-ray or just how well it plays a 4K disc. I think it is fantastic, and I think it's the best one on the market at the moment. So again, I've been using this for about a month now. I've had 0 issues with it, and I plan on keeping this for a very long time because this has been a dream to use. I just like all the features that are on this. So again, I can highly recommend picking up this player. If you have the money to pick it up for full retail, again, you will not be disappointed. It's a fantastic player. But try to catch it on sale. Black Friday's coming up, and I'm sure this will drop maybe $100. Don't hold me to that because I have no idea. Or they might just release a new one and this one will go on sale. Until next time, if you guys enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing because that is the best way to help us out. Have a great day.